Hello guys! Welcome everyone back to the episode of Mando-Monday. This is the series where you guys ask the questions and I of course answer them. And that could be to do with anything related to Counter-Strike 2, Valve, future upcoming updates such as CS2's first operation, future update to the Armory, or maybe its new returning maps, modes, weapons, or features. If you guys have a question you want a shot at being answered in next week's video, leave it down below of this one as well as my many weekly community posts. This week's episode of Mando-Monday, we are going to break down a handful of topics such as the next set of Armory rewards featuring returning agents, old beloved modes such as Danger Zone making a comeback, the next map rotation, operations, and not to mention the discussion of the new/current era of Counter-Strike. But before we go any further, I want to thank SkinsMonkey for sponsoring today's video. Are you bored of your current Counter-Strike loadout and want to trade it out for something different? SkinsMonkey has you covered. As a buying and trading marketplace, SkinsMonkey offers amazing deals and the fastest way to trade out your old skins for something new. By using my code MANDO, you can get up to a free $5 by spending $100 or more, as well as you also get a 35% deposit bonus when topping up your balance. With SkinsMonkey's large variety of skins, they also offer daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. If interested, the link will be at the top of the description down below. Now, firstly, for today's video, we're going to hop right into the meat potatoes, that being the questions. Our first one up here is in regards to the Armory, and they say, do you think they will add new agents to the next Armory? It's a great question, and I believe the answer is yes, but it's somewhat complicated. And what I mean by this is I think myself and pretty much the entire CS community, especially the skin enthusiasts, not to mention everyday players, because agents, yes, are skins, but they also make a change up of the game for how it feels sometimes, because of the different voice lines, for how your sleeves look, but also for how you appear on the map. Agents, I think probably everyone can agree, but also Valve, that they are going to return. It's just a matter of when that's going to happen. Valve at this point is by no means done with them because they know they're going to sell well, which has definitely given them a larger interest than they have in the past. In terms of cosmetics, they're definitely one of the most asked for things, especially since operations are no longer with us here in CS2, but more about that later. I think for agents returning to CS2, I think it really comes down to three different options. The first one I think is actually pretty likely, and that I think is that Valve is waiting for CS2 to bottom out and somewhat be in a bad spot. And what I mean by that is we'll have a declining player count, skins won't be creating that much attention, the market won't be doing so well, people are not opening cases. And then that's the time Valve is going to want to bring back old cosmetics that they know will perform well to bring back those players, not to mention the new players that never, got a chance to buy those in the first place all those years ago. It's somewhat similar to a large update for Counter-Strike. We've seen this in the past where when CS2 is in a bad spot, Valve just kind of puts together some half-fast update that for us, the players, is pretty big, but for all we know behind the scenes, it took Valve not very long to do so. And another thing I will say for agents is yes, we've probably had some deleted agents that Valve never added to CSGO that they will most likely and have ported over to CS2 already. But unlike skins where you can just get them from the workshop, Valve actually has to put in a lot of effort for these agents because there's voice lines that go into them. Some of the time, at least in operations, there was some lore. There's a lot more that goes into it than just some sort of map and skin creation that you normally see just on an everyday update. The second option is Valve will add them to the Armory and future CS content. And what I mean by that is, what your question was in the first place. I actually think there's a pretty good chance that Valve sometime in the future, when the next Armory refresh happens, which I think will be sometime after the major, that's when we could see, let's just say, an entire section of just agents that are brand new. And of course, our third option is probably the most unlikely in my opinion, and we'll explain more into this in our next question, but Valve could very well also add agents in the future in CS2's very first operation. That's at least official. But let me know what you guys think down below. I do firmly believe agents are going to return simply because they will make Valve a lot of money, but there are a lot of things behind the scenes that, it would take a lot for that to happen. Let me know what you guys think. Now, our second question / statement up here is pretty interesting, and I have an answer / comment to this that I don't know how it's gonna go over with a lot of people. He says, "Hi Luke, we need the old love for the game. Operation, Danger Zone, good skins, good anti-cheat, more fun for the game. Thank you for your work and stay safe." Well, thank you for your question, brother. I really appreciate it. Now, starting off this question, I think myself, but also the majority of the CS population, can't really disagree with you on this. But my thing to this is, what if this was just the old era of CS and not anything else? What I mean by this is, depending on how you look at Counter-Strike, CS2 right now is in a pretty good spot and hasn't been in this good of a spot for a very long time. And I'm not talking just CS2, I'm talking Counter-Strike in general. Leaks at this moment are at a very all-time high. Valve's planned upcoming content post-major also seems to be there, and Valve, as of right now, at least the CS2 dev team, seems to be changing, listening, not to mention innovating the game in ways we haven't really seen in years. Operations, though they were amazing, maybe it's just as of right now a new era for Counter-Strike, where it's out with the old and in with the new. Operations in CSGO did Counter-Strike wonders. We had missions, we had the battle pass, new skins and cosmetics, new maps, game modes, not to mention operation coins, which I do miss. But instead of Valve releasing just one operation a year featuring those things for a matter of just 3 to 4 months, we now have them here in Counter-Strike 2 in a 24/7 state. Yes, I understand that it's not the same, but at this rate, in the matter of just a couple more years, we're gonna get get much more content than CSGO ever provided in this new format. I think right now for a lot of people it's just a question of quality. Is it going to meet the Counter-Strike Global Offensive standards? As it stands for Danger Zone, this was a mode I believe Valve and a lot of CS players wanted to work out, and it just really didn't. Yes, it was fun, but if this many players as of right now who currently state that they love Danger Zone, they played it all the time, Danger Zone would still be here, and that's just the hard truth. Danger Zone was fun while it lasted, but it died and didn't carry over to CS2 because nobody played it. And really, that's not even the truth, that's just, well, how it is. And not to mention, I also believe Valve did bite a little more off that they could chew with that mode. Skins inside CS2 as of right now are arguably the best we've ever seen in Counter-Strike's history. With the Source 2 engine and its capabilities, skins look more stunning than ever. But for Valve picking the right ones for certain cases, for certain collections, that's kind of up in the air. But like we stated earlier, we've gotten more skins with the Armory, cases, events, and the new drop pool than what we've seen sometimes in a couple year span inside CSGO. And that was even in CSGO's prime. As it stands for the anti-cheat inside CS2, this is not even really up for debate, but we've seen Valve cater towards more of VacNet, updating it, talking to us, the players, about what they're doing, and they even did the impossible where they released a limited test version of VacNet 3 and even told the CS community. And it seems like every week, if you check the game files, they are playing around with Vac to make it a little bit better and for us CS players to have a better experience. But for CS2 needing more fun and goofy maps and modes, I can completely agree with you. Counter-Strike, after deleting CSGO, we had pretty much all of that just stripped away and went from a fun, goofy game with some seriousness taken every once in a while to pretty much all of that being stripped away in just a matter of a couple of days. But within the most recent updates to CS2, we've slowly began to shift in what we had, which I think is great, and it's even coming with its own charm. And what do you guys think? I know my statement, my answer to this was probably a little bit controversial, but that's just how I feel at this point. At the rate we're going with CS2 at this very moment, with the updates we're getting, with the communication that we're getting from Valve, which I will state right here, this is the most we've ever had within Counter-Strike's history, even with their dry sprees. By the time CS2's life is over, I think by the end we're gonna have seen probably 2 to 4 times the amount of content we had in CSGO. But like we mentioned earlier, I think it's all just a matter of quality versus quantity. Now we will mention this a little more in today's video, but it's similar to operation missions and the weekly missions that were just added to CS2. Valve is listening to the community, but those missions only do so much. Most people are trying to sound greedy, but it's not really giving much to offer players when you're only giving 400 XP and no real reward. Versus an operation, there was a lot more to it. But thank you for your question, brother. These are in fact some of my favorites that we get from Mando-Monday because they create a great conversation. If you guys disagree with that, leave your thoughts and comments down below. Love to hear what you guys think. Our next question up here is in regards to maps, and this guy says, when is the next map rotation scheduled for? Now, in terms of the next map rotation for the competitive map pool, we should see this happen post Austin Major, featuring either Cobblestone, Cache, Overpass, or something brand new, or maybe all of those together. As it stands for why Cache is maybe on or off the table at this very moment, well, there's a few different reasons. It has come out just as of recently that Valve bought Cache the day it went public on Steam, which is the reason why FM Poem never really updated it after he released it. But according to new data mines and commentaries from someone like Gabe Follower, he states that since Valve bought it, they could very well change the entire layout of the map, change how it looks, maybe optimize it a little more, so on and so forth. And if they do so, that's going to definitely take some time, which that kind of explains why Cobblestone might come first. We began seeing Cobblestone within CS2's game files during the limited test to have some sort of a winter theme, and since we haven't really seen that. And also within the last couple of months, we've also seen that Valve have turned off pretty much anything for data miners what devs are working on at any given time for CS2, not to mention all other Valve products. So getting the inside scoop, it's pretty selective nowadays for what Valve wants us to see versus not wanting us to see. And in this case, Valve could also just be Valve and pull a fast one on all the CS players, where we're not going to have either until sometime next year and just reintroduce Overpass to change the map pool. Which, yes, I know it's not a new map, but I don't think would be the worst thing in the world because Overpass didn't really get that much love with the first few months of CS2. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are about this one down below. Love to see what you guys think. Our next question up here for today's video is in regards to the weekly missions that Valve added in the most recent Mission Possible update. This guy states that they really need to raise the XP prizes from the missions because when I get missions that give 400 XP, I don't bother doing them. And judging by the likes of this comment, but also the countless comments that I've gotten about this ever since my recent videos have gone out about that update, a lot of players agree with it, and in some ways, so do I. Now, the weekly missions, like we stated earlier, are steps in the right direction for Valve listening to the community feedback, but at this point, and at eventually some point, it's not really enough. And that's kind of what we're at right now. Valve is listening to the community. They want to do more, which they have. It's just not enough. Where I get we're not paying for a pass like we have in prior operations that gives players a chance to get new skins from playing the game. But I mean, wait, we kind of are with the Armory pass. That's besides the point. In my opinion, Valve needs to add the ability for players who have bought a pass in the past or do buy a pass in the future future to earn stars through the Armory for rewards instead of just one weekly objective mission. The problem with this is weekly missions do hardly anything for players, and at this moment it's barely a reward when the weekly XP gives players a boatload more. And especially depending on the weekly mission, it's kind of just a waste of your time. For example, if you don't play competitive and you only play Premier, if you have to win 15 to 20 rounds on a competitive map, that for some people is going to be a waste of your time, especially if it's something on Wingman. Which this, like we've stated throughout today's video, but also recent commentaries, because of the weekly missions, because of the Armory, because of what Valve is planning to add in the future, this also goes into further detail why I don't think operations probably will ever return, at least in the format we saw back in CSGO. Those are never coming back to CS2 in that way. Because if you add everything together that Valve has added to CS2 over this last couple of years, we pretty much have an operation, maybe 2 operations worth of content. Also, like we've stated, it's also a matter of quality versus quantity. With that being said, that pretty much concludes today's episode of Mando-Monday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know it was a little bit more different than our ones in the past, but let me know what you guys think and comment your questions for next week's video. Ladies and gentlemen, Fallout.